Thanks to Heather, and thanks to MICA, and thanks for Etsy and everybody who's joining us online. So my name is Megan Aumann. I am a jewelry designer. I'm trained as a metalsmith, and then I also run a website called Crafting an MBA, which is business thinking for designers and makers. If you've never been to my site, it's craftmba.com, and we'll talk about that at the end too. So tonight we're going to talk about web marketing, and I think the big question that I want to start with is, if you build it, will they come? So it has never been easier to set up an online shop. If you're not an Etsy seller, you can go home tonight, you can set up an Etsy shop, and then you hope stuff happens. But the truth is that it doesn't quite work like that. So putting your stuff online isn't enough, which is where marketing comes in. So why does marketing matter? Well, obviously, marketing is important because it helps bring traffic to your website, it helps bring brand recognition, and ideally, it brings sales of your product. So I like to think of marketing as this kind of three-tier process. You're going to use your marketing efforts to build brand awareness. As you build brand awareness, you're going to get permission from people. Typically, this is permission for you to contact them in the future, whether that's through an email list, whether that's by liking your page on Facebook, whatever that is, you want permission to interact with people, and then you're going to use that permission to generate sales. Everybody thinks, okay, I'm going to put up my website, I'm going to do some marketing, and people are going to buy stuff right away. But the truth is that most people don't buy the first time they come to your website or your Etsy shop or anything like that. So marketing is this process of gradually building trust with your customer until they make that sales purchase, and then hopefully they make repeated sales purchases in the future. So when it comes to marketing, it's really important that you set marketing goals, because I think everyone's like, oh, I need to market more. Marketing's really important. Well, it is, but it's only important if you kind of know what you're trying to achieve. So some of the things that you might want to do, you might think, I'm going to increase my conversion rate, I'm going to increase the traffic to my website, I want to increase my sales. And what I always tell people, when they're taking my marketing e-courses or when they're just starting out, that you have to establish your baseline. So you have to go in and figure out where you are now. What's the traffic to your Etsy shop at this point? How many people are you converting? And if you're like, I don't know what converting means, that's okay, we're going to talk about it. So how many people are you converting? How many sales do you have? It's unlikely that you're going to go from maybe 1 sale a month to 1,000 sales the next month. So it's really important that you sit down, you figure out your baseline numbers, and then you establish your goals from there. And then most importantly, you need to tailor your marketing to your ideal customer. So some of you may have been or may have listened in on the last workshop that I did here at MICA and online at Etsy, which is all about finding your target market. And if you didn't see it, it's okay, it's up online on MICA's website, so you can go check that out later. But I think the biggest mistake that people make in their marketing is that they don't do customer-focused marketing. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. Most people, they don't care about you. What they actually care about is what's in it for them. And I know that's a kind of cynical way to look at the world, but what you can actually think is, okay, instead of thinking my business is about me, I'm going to think, what value does my business provide to my customer? What am I bringing to them? Because that's what they're interested in. So all of your marketing should be focused on providing value to the customer. And I use value as, I know it's kind of an ambiguous word, like you're like, well, value, what does that mean? Well, that's something different for everybody. So for some people, what they value is beautiful art for their home or great jewelry that they can wear. Online, when you're talking about your marketing, people value something interesting to read. They might value pretty pictures to look at. People value entertainment. There's a reason that YouTube is so popular. So value doesn't have to mean, like I want an iPhone that does it all. Value is different to different people, but the point is that you're focused on your customer. So when you're choosing your marketing strategy, you're going to figure out kind of the intersection of what your ideal customer wants and then sort of what you're good at, and hopefully you'll come up with a marketing plan that works for you. So I think the first step in marketing is to establish an online home base. So why is an online home base important? So when I say online home base, this is what I mean. Basically, what I think is really critical is sending people to one website instead of 5. So you start to see it, you know, when everyone was just starting out in your email signature or online, you might have had one website that you were trying to feature. And now we kind of have website creep. So on the bottom of your email list, you've got your Etsy shop, your blog, your Twitter account, your Facebook page. That's too much stuff. A really good rule of marketing is that a confused mind always says no. So if your email signature or whatever has 12 different websites that people should go to, they're probably not going to go to any of them. So what I think is really key is to set up an online home base. And what that lets you do is send people to one website. All your marketing efforts are targeted at that one website. And from that website, you can send people to your Etsy shop, you can send them to your Facebook page, they can look at your About page and find out more about you. So this way, all your traffic funnels to one site, and then people see exactly what you want them to see. So just another example of a good online home base. Some of you may know Lisa Congdon's work, and like that little shop link at the top, that goes straight to her Etsy shop. And then, you know, I think her About page is just a simple page. So it's really easy, it's really key to set up that online home base. So what are you looking for in an online home base? If you don't have one and you have to go out and kind of set one up, what do you want? I like an online home base that gives me maximum control of my brand. So that probably means either building, you know, a site with some HTML, or my personal favorite, which is a self-hosted WordPress site. And everybody thinks of WordPress like, oh, it's a blog, but it's actually not. WordPress is a content management system, and what that means is you can use it to really easily build a website. But basically, you want to have a site that you can kind of control. Also in your online home base, a short, memorable URL. So I know people who are like, okay, well, I'm going to use my blog as my online home base, but it's something, something, something.blogspot.com. That's really long. I've already forgotten it, clearly, because I couldn't even remember it to begin with. So you want to choose something, you know, like yourname.com or yourbusinessname.com. So either something that's memorable, people are going to remember it, or you might do something that's SEO optimized, search engine optimization. So you might say, okay, well, I make, you know, the world's best soap, so your URL might be theworldsbestsoap.com. So think about that. You want to have a compelling about page. The most visited site on or page on any website is an about page. People want to know what the website's about. So somewhere in the online home base, you're going to put up an about page. It lets you capture email addresses. And I'm going to move on to this one. It's got a nice big email address capture. I think that's really critical for your online home base, because if we go back to that brand awareness, permission, sales thing, you need some way to get people's permission, and the best form of permission-based marketing is email marketing. So if you can capture email addresses, that's even better. Then we want it to play to your strengths. So if you know that there is no way in the world that you could maintain a blog is not the best online home base, because you don't want someone to go to a page that you haven't blogged in like 4 months or something. So, you know, think about what you're good at and what you're going to be able to do in your marketing efforts, and then go from there. And then the last thing is that your online home base should have a clear call to action. Call to action means, what do you want someone to do when they get to your page? I think it's pretty clear. When I get to this website, I'm supposed to give my email address. That's her really clear call to action. And so when you pick a home base, you want to figure out, what do you want people to do? If the first thing you want them to do is go to your Etsy shop, then that should be a really big link on your online home base. So you want to kind of figure out what the one thing is. Best call to actions are always one thing. What's the one thing you want people to do? I'm a huge fan, by the way, of the email as your call to action. All right. So if you haven't already done this, you should register the domain name associated with your business. So if you're just selling on Etsy right now, go home tonight, or if you're already at your computer when this presentation is done, go in, register the domain name associated with your business. If you're not ready to set up an HTML site, that's okay. Just forward it straight to your Etsy shop. But the point is that you want to be able to give people a URL that's branded with your name. All right, so let's talk about conversion. And I think conversion is the most important statistic when you're looking at your site. So speaking of statistics, if you're not tracking things on your site, Google Analytics is the way to go. And for whatever site you're running, whether it's your Etsy shop or a WordPress blog or anything that you're doing, all you have to do is go online and Google, how do I set up Google Analytics for my Etsy shop? And you'll find really, really useful tutorials. So it doesn't matter kind of how you set it up, it just matters that you set it up. But a lot of times when people focus on their stats, they focus on traffic. Oh, I had X amount of visitors today. How do I get twice as many visitors tomorrow? But it doesn't actually matter how many visitors you have. It matters what they do when they get there. And that's what conversion means. So conversion is, did people take the action that I wanted them to take when they got there? So you might measure a conversion rate based on how many people bought something. Or you might measure a conversion rate based on how many people sign up for your email list, or how many people liked your Facebook page. So it's really important that you figure out how many people your website's converting, because what happens is your website could have all the traffic in the world, but if your website doesn't convert, you're never going to make any money because you're never going to sell anything. So a lot of people go out and they're like, I have to get more traffic, I have to get more traffic. Before you do any of the traffic generating techniques, you're going to go back through your website and you're going to figure out how your website can convert better. So if you're going to calculate conversion, unfortunately, usually Google Analytics or whatever sites, they're not going to give you that number off the top of your head. So you're going to have to do a little digging. So if you're looking at conversion in your Etsy shop, you might look at the number of sales you had in a given month, and then divide that by the number of visitors you had in that month. And that's going to give you a conversion percentage. I know that looks a little scary like algebra, but it's not bad. So number of sales in a month divided by number of visitors in a month. So if I had 10 sales last month and I had 1,000 visitors, that means I have a 1% conversion rating. Now, from there, you can start to think about how to make your conversion rate better. So if you're, like I talked about with your goals, if your conversion rate is 1%, you might not be able to say, okay, I'm going to up that to 75%. And actually, 75% is pretty much an unheard of conversion rate for sales online. If you're somewhere between like 1 to 3%, you're doing okay. If you're at like 10% conversion, you're a rock star. So don't feel like you have to convert every single person that comes to your site. It's not going to happen. So this conversion percentage, I can do that. I can substitute any action in there. So another good one to check is number of email signups in a month. So I'm going to divide that by the number of visitors in a month and figure out how many people I'm converting to my email list. And again, I'm a big fan of looking at that conversion point. You can also do the conversion math. So say you send an email out to your list. Say 100 people open the email and 2 people buy. So now I got a 2% conversion off of that email. So those are really important things to look at. The biggest kind of game that a lot of people play in the online marketing world is not how can I get more traffic, but how can I up my conversion. And the good news is that you can actually do a lot of small tweaks to your website to boost conversion. And we're going to talk about some of those email ones in a minute when we get to email marketing, but for now, let's just talk about some small tweaks that you can do in terms of sales to try to improve your sales conversion. So the first one is that you should have a really solid customer-focused about page. Like I said before, your about page is the most read page on your website or on anyone's website. People get to your website, they want to know, what is this about? Who is this person? And what do they have to offer me? So my about page, yes, it gives you kind of all the basics about me. It talks about, kind of why I'm interested in jewelry. It talks about where I went to school, where I live now, but it also talks about what kinds of products I make and what value they offer to my customer. So when you look at your about page, kind of sit down and figure out, okay, what is it about my products that people like? What is it about my products that people find interesting? That's the value that you're giving, and that's what you want to share on your About page. So people go to your About page to find out, like, oh, okay, a little bit more about the person behind the website. But you want them to read it and be like, oh, well, I can get this out of that? That's fantastic. That's going to convert more sales. So the number one reason that people don't buy online is that they don't have enough information. And if they don't have enough information, most people aren't going to go dig for it or seek it out. They're just going to walk away in kind of the virtual sense. So making sure that you provide customers with enough information is going to help boost your conversion rate immensely. So one way to do that is to put a frequently asked questions page on your website, either on your online home base, or if you're sending people to your Etsy shop, put that in your profile. Anytime that you get an email, put a frequently asked question in there. So, if people are asking you, like, what's the standard shipping time, that should go in there. And think about it from kind of your customer's perspective, too. I always say, like, ask a non-art, can you guys see that better now? Ask a non-art friend, or like someone who doesn't sell online, to walk through your shop and figure out, would they buy from you? Do they have questions? And then put all of those on a frequently asked questions page. So anything that you think your customer is going to want to know. The other thing that you're going to want to do is improve your product descriptions. Because people are lazy, and that's fine, we love them anyway, but not everyone's going to go to that frequently asked questions page. They might go to your product page and either make a decision, yes, I'm going to buy, no, I'm not going to buy. So the more information you can give people in your product descriptions, the better they'll be. There's a really great resource floating around the Etsy forums called 20 Questions Your Customers Are Asking, and if you search it, you'll find it right away. It's really great because you can actually run down that list of questions and figure out what information is missing from my product description. So some of them seem really basic, like what is it? You know your product inside and out, so you know exactly what it is, but the person reading your website, they might not know. They're like, what is this weird flowery thing? I don't get it. So telling people what it is, telling people what it's made out of, how it's used, what color it comes in. Do you have to wash it? Do you have to, take it out every night? Any kind of weird details people are going to want to know. But they're also going to want to know sort of like that full story of your product and how that product fits into their lives. So I put this up here as an example. This is a product of mine from my Etsy shop. And that's my old description. Over there on the left, you can see it's really short. And I used that 20 questions your buyers are asking exercise to go through and beef up my product descriptions. And I actually started converting a lot more just by giving people more information about my product. So I always tell people are like, oh, that's so overwhelming. I have 100 items in my shop. Do I have to go through and do all of them tonight? Well, no, you don't have to. It's okay. So, make it a project. Like every day I'm going to tackle 2 or 3, items in my shop, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to make that product description really great. And then soon you'll find that all of your products are converting really well. All right, so let's talk about email marketing. I think web marketing rule number 1, always capture email addresses. But you can see I've got a little asterisk on there, but only with permission. So obviously we're all familiar now with the anti-spam laws. You can't just start randomly adding people to your email list. So just because they've bought something doesn't mean you can put them on a list. Just because you talked to them one time, you can't put them on a list. Just because you like their blog, you can't put them on your email list. Stop doing that. So, you have to have people's permission. But with that said, the most important thing you can do is capture and build your email list, because your email list is actually where you can make a lot of money if you use it right. So why is this important? I know you already saw this, but I think it's that important that I'm going to bring it up again. Most people don't buy the first time they come to your website. So what happens if you're not capturing emails? They come to your website, they're like, gee, I like that, but XYZ reason I'm not buying that right now. And then they forget about it. And maybe a couple months down the line, they're on some website, maybe they see it again, maybe they think they like it, maybe they've got the money. There's a lot of maybes there. So if you're capturing email addresses, they go to your site, they say, yeah, I like this. I'm gonna give my email address so that I can remember it later. Then 3 months down the road, they get the email from you, and suddenly, oh yeah, I have money, I love that, I'm gonna buy that now. So what happens if you don't capture email addresses is they go to your site, they look, they leave. You have no way of ever finding them again. But if you have their email address, suddenly you can find them. So it's all about getting permission to contact people in the future. The other thing that email marketing does is it allows you to build trust with the customer. So sometimes people don't buy from you just because they don't know. You know, I don't know this person, this is a new business, maybe they're uncomfortable. So by having that kind of email marketing going, you can actually build trust with the customer and get them to hopefully make that purchase later. So choosing the right email service provider. This is not something that you want to try to manage like in your Gmail inbox, because it's just a recipe for disaster. So instead, you want to use a good, inexpensive email service provider, and there are some great ones out there. But the number one thing that you should look for is something called a double opt-in service. Double opt-in means that someone fills out the form on your website, it sends them an email, and they have to confirm that email before they're signed up. The reason that this is important is because when your emails go out into the world, Gmail or Yahoo or whoever's getting the email, they don't judge just based on if you're sending out spam. They judge based on every email that comes from your email service provider. So if you're using someone without a double opt-in, that company is getting a lot more spam complaints, which means that your emails are less likely to be delivered. Double opt-in services have a much higher deliverability rate. So basically, double opt-in means your customers are going to get your emails and not their spam folder. So that's why you want to look for that. So there are two great options. First one is Aweber. I use Aweber a lot. Aweber does not have a free option, but they are really, really good. For me, I also personally use them because they're based in Pennsylvania and I like to support a local business. They do everything that you're going to need. They, email setup, autoresponders, managing multiple campaigns. They're really great. But if you're concerned about cost, go with MailChimp. I also use MailChimp. I like email marketing that much that I use both services. MailChimp is great. They're really great for small business in that I think they're now up to 2,000 email addresses that you can have for free. You can pretty much use their free account for a really long time. MailChimp also is constantly adding and upgrading features where you can actually see like the social media clout of the people on your email list. You can see who's influential on Twitter or who's influential on Facebook, which is really cool when you're building campaigns. But the nice thing about MailChimp is that even if you're like, I don't even know what you just said, social media clout, what's that? It's really easy to just go in and send an email to people. So it's got that really great ease of use thing. So if you're not using a service, I really highly recommend MailChimp. Go sign up for it. And the other nice thing too is that both Aweber and MailChimp will let you build those really pretty sign-in forms that you can just embed right on your website. All right. So getting people to sign up for your email list. This is always the tricky part. So now we're talking about conversion for my email list, because it's not enough that you have a list. You need people to sign up for it. So the first thing that you should do is put your email sign-up form prominently so that it displays on every page of your website. Now you'll notice this is not her main home page. This is a page on her blog. What you have to remember is that a lot of people are going to enter your website through the back door. Like you spend all this time, you make this really pretty home page, and then they find you for some random blog post that you wrote about your cat. So you want to make sure that if they find you through that random blog post, they can still see your email sign up. It's on every single page of your website. So that's number one. The next thing is you want to offer a cookie. And a cookie means you're going to give people some kind of incentive, some kind of goodie to join your email list. So depending on what kind of products you make, what you do, that cookie might be like a discount code. You might say, sign up for my website and you're going to automatically get a 20% off discount code. It might be a freebie. So Megan here on her site, she now has a free PDF of a children's book she did. And when you sign up for her email list, you get that free PDF that you can put on your iPad, read to your daughter at night, that kind of thing. So if you're doing something where you can create like a digital download, that's really great. Any kind of incentive for people to sign up. And the incentive might be that once a week you send out some awesome tip or something. So thinking about what your business is and what you can do to add value to your customer. So the next thing I want to talk about now is we've got some people on our list. What are you going to do with that list? Because it's not enough just to have the emails. Now we actually want to send people emails. And my big rule is stop thinking of it as a newsletter. So what I see in people, and especially I think artists who kind of transition from a paper newsletter, but in general people are like, okay, it's my email newsletter. So I'm going to send out an email that looks like this. It's got, and yes, those are all nonsense words. It's got 3 articles, it's got an about section. You only send out an email once every 2 months, and you want everybody to know what you've been doing for the last 2 months. This is a terrible way to do email marketing because it goes back to that confused mind always says no. I don't have time to read all of this in an email. I don't know about you guys, I barely have time to read my email in general. So if I get something like this, it's way overwhelming and I'm usually going to delete it. So instead, what you want to focus on is one email with one message per email. One message, one idea, one really clear call to action. So when I'm done reading your email, I should know what I'm supposed to do next. So this is an email that I sent out. You can see it's like 3 of the shortest paragraphs in the world. And all I wanted people to do, I didn't ask them to buy anything. I just wanted them to go over to the blog post that I wrote that day and take a look at some stuff. It could probably be jazzed up with a pretty picture. It could be a little better. I'm not saying it's the best example, and this is just built on one of MailChimp's templates. So 3 keys for a successful email campaign. And I call it campaign only because that's what MailChimp or Aweber is going to call it. They're going to say you're creating a campaign. Don't think about it like that. I'm not really creating a campaign. I'm not really creating a newsletter. I'm sending an email to a friend who happens to be my ideal customer that I hope might buy something in the future, but a friend nonetheless. So the 3 things that you're going to want, one, you're going to want a catchy subject line. How many times do you get an email and you're like, news from Megan? Who is Megan? Do I want to open this? Probably not. And you're just going to delete it. So, you want to kind of be a little bit more exciting with your subject lines. Number 2 is something of value to the reader. And again, something of value is going to vary a lot. But somewhere in there, you should say, this is something for you. So some people will send out emails that are maybe just a tip that's kind of tangentially related to your product. So let's say that you make wedding invitations. You might send out an email once a week with just 1 tip for wedding planning. That's a great thing because if I'm a bride and I'm planning my wedding and I'm thinking about getting invitations from you, and every week you're sending me this great tip that I can use to make my wedding planning easier, I'm probably going to buy my invitations from you because now I'm feeling like, yeah, this person's great. They're really helping me out. So something of value to the reader. And just keep in mind that sometimes something of value can be as simple as, I've got new work that you might want to see. The other thing I'll say is that people get hung up on that something of value and they think every time they send an email, they have to send a coupon code for your shop. It's totally not necessary. Probably the people who are on your list, there's a big chunk of them who are going to buy products at some point regardless. I'm not saying never send out a coupon code, but I know people who are like, I'm going to give a tip and then at the bottom I'm going to have a coupon code. Well, if you're going to have a coupon code in every email, then just lower your prices and be done with it. So you don't need that coupon code all the time. And then the very last thing is you should have a really clear call to action. The call to action is not necessarily to buy something. So your first call to action might be, click on this link. I want you to go to my blog, or I want you to go to somewhere. Or your call to action might be, forward this email to a friend. Sometimes your call to action is going to say, hey, buy my new product. But for the most part, you want to keep those to every 3rd or 4th email. what you want to do is kind of train your audience to do what you've told them to do. So if you send an email and the call to action is click on this link, and then the next time the call to action is just reply to this email and tell me what you think, and then the next time it's click on this link, and suddenly you've got them used to clicking on the link because it sends them to something really great, then when click on this link is a product that you want them to buy, they're going to be more likely to do it. So people are always kind of like, well, okay, so I get the idea, but what do I send out in my email marketing? I mean, really, like, what do I do? I don't have that much to say. I'm a big fan of repurposing content. So we're going to, after we're done talking about email marketing, we're going to talk about blogging, we're going to talk about Facebook. And here's the thing. If you're running a business, you're probably trying to stay on top of all these different things, and so you might, get emails from your favorite blogs, and you might also read them in your Google Reader, and you might also follow all those people on Twitter. But the average person does not consume content in that many formats. They might only get stuff in their email, or they might only see it if it comes up on their Facebook feed. So it's okay if you take the content that you wrote for your blog and turn that into an email that you send to your email list. You don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to your content. You can use the same stuff across the web in slightly different variations. And I think that's something really important to think about when you're doing all of your marketing. All right, so let's talk about the blog. And the first question that everybody asks is, do I really need a blog? And the answer is maybe. It depends. So first, let's talk about what a blog does well. So the first thing that a blog does well is it helps with SEO, search engine optimization. And it helps with SEO on two factors. First, when you have a blog, you're generating more regular content. And the more regular content you're generating, the more keywords are going to show up in Google. So if you've got your blog, if you've got a website and all you've got on it is product, people have to be searching specifically for that product in order to find your website. But if you've got a blog and you maybe talk about movies that you find interesting or books that you read and someone searches for that book, they might then make their way to your site just based on that keyword, and that happens to me all the time. So that's the first way that it helps. The second way that it helps is when you're writing a blog that provides useful content, stuff that people want to read, other people are going to link back to you. And Google likes it when you've got a lot of inbound links. The more inbound links you have, the higher you're going to show up in search rankings. So having a blog can help with both of those things. The other thing that blogs do is they help build trust with your customers. This is just another way that your customers can know, hey, this is a real person and not like some scam where I'm going to send my money and never get my product. So having a blog, you can be like, oh, right, they're a real person. They have kids. They have a dog, that kind of thing. And then you can also use the blog to let your customers feel invested in the process. So if you're going, oh, I'm working on my new spring collection and I've got to pick 3 colors and I'm stuck at like 8 different colors, help me narrow it down to 3. Suddenly they feel invested in the process, and then when you do launch that new spring collection, they want to buy because, oh yeah, I helped pick that color. I'm the reason that that color's in the line. So it really helps you kind of build that engagement with your audience. But the most important thing that you have to ask yourself is, who are you blogging for? And I think there are kind of 3 types of blogs that happen when people are like, oh, I have to have a blog to market my business. And the first one is that it ends up becoming a really personal blog. You talk about your day, you talk about your kids, you talk about your cats. And I have nothing against personal blogs, but they're not a form of marketing. And that's fine if you want to run a personal blog, but don't kind of, convince yourself that by writing about your cat, you're going to, actually help promote your business. So when you're writing a personal blog, you're blogging for you, or maybe you're blogging for the grandparents because they can't see the kids all the time. And that's fine. Just know that that's not going to help your business. Then the next one that I see a lot is kind of like a behind-the-scenes blog. This is what's going on with my studio. Like, this is what I'm making right now. This is what's going on. Well, if you only blog about behind the scenes, your biggest audience for your blog is probably not going to be your customer. It's going to be your peer group. It's going to be the other people who make stuff like you do and want to see what you're doing. So An occasional behind-the-scenes post can be good, but an entirely behind-the-scenes blog probably isn't going to pull in your ideal customer. So if you really, really want to kind of have a blog and use it as marketing, you have to figure out a way to make your blog customer-focused. You have to figure out a way to provide valuable, useful content for your customer. Now that said, and I'm going to show you guys a couple examples, doing that takes a lot of work. And here's where I say, maybe you don't need a blog. Because if you can't commit to that kind of blogging, your blog is probably not going to be very useful for you, and you should spend your marketing time somewhere else. But there are some people who are really good at the whole blogging thing, and they can create a really great customer-focused blog that does a lot of marketing for them. So this is Ink and Wit, and she kind of took the design blog sort of track for hers, where she's blogging about other people's products, things that she's finding interesting. I will say that that's probably the first one that most people jump to when they think customer focused. They think, oh, I'm going to start a design blog then. The design blog world is really oversaturated. So if you can figure out a new spin on it, you can probably do great. Otherwise, it might not be the best customer focused blog. This is one that I like, where every week she puts together an outfit. You know, like, what are you going to wear to the farmer's market? Or what are you going to wear to a wedding this weekend? And what I like about it is that she brings in all these products, and, oh, here's how my jewelry fits into that outfit too. So it's useful because you're showing your customer, here's all this great stuff that you could put together. Here's an outfit that you might never think of. But it's also, you know, a real subtle sales pitch too. Here's how my jewelry looks with this outfit. So this one might not work so much on like the SEO bringing traffic in standpoint, but it's probably going to work really well on the sort of building trust with your customers. My favorite example of kind of a content powerhouse customer-focused blog is Jess Constable, who runs a blog called Make Under My Life. She also runs a jewelry business called Jess LC. And so Make Under My Life is an entire blog based on this idea of helping women simplify their lives. And Jess didn't start this as a marketing strategy. She started this because she really believed that this was her passion, and you can feel that on the blog. But it turned out that this really great blog that was focused on helping other people became a really valuable marketing tool for her business, Jess LC, because she's writing for the target audience of her jewelry. And now you'll actually find, if you go to her site, you'll see a lot more posts about what's going on in the jewelry business too, only because her customers who were reading the blog knew she was running a jewelry business. They were curious to know what was going on, so she talks about that more. But I think this is a really great example. But not everybody can pull this off. I mean, if you look at kind of Jess's day and Jess's business model, she spends a good chunk of her day blogging. And then she spends a good chunk of her day working on the marketing of her business. And she doesn't do all the production for her business. So that's why she can kind of use this model. But if you have a strong writing voice, if you have a clear message, you really can make this work for you. Now, if you're not quite ready to do that yet, that's okay. There are some other strategies that you can use to kind of market and build your business. All right, so speaking of other strategies, let's talk about social media. And I'm going to narrow it down. We're going to talk about two social media forms today, Facebook and Twitter. There are a ton. Social media comes in and out, and you'll always see, kind of new things. You've got Dig, you've got Stumble Upon. There's a lot of stuff in the social media world. But Facebook and Twitter, they've established themselves as the heavy hitters. And here's my thoughts on that. Facebook, yes. I don't care if you hate it. I'm going to let you know a little secret. I hate it too. But it's important, and I'll tell you why in a sec. Twitter, maybe. Depending on what you're doing and what your goals are, Twitter may or may not be necessary for your business. But let's talk about Facebook first, because Facebook is 100% essential for your business. Because everybody is on Facebook. Everybody, I don't care what demographic you're targeting, like the fastest growing demographic on Facebook I think is 60 and older. That is the fastest growing demographic on Facebook, because everybody else is already on it, and now all the grandmas are like, I want to see my grandkids. So that is the fastest growing demographic. Facebook is also the second space that people check online every single morning. You check your email, you check your Facebook. Almost everybody. So if you're not on Facebook, you are missing a really key opportunity to promote your business. And you're also missing a really key opportunity to engage with your customers. So if you haven't already, it's a really good idea to set up a Facebook page for your business. This allows you to keep your Facebook business identity separate from your regular Facebook, this is where I show pictures of my kids kind of identity. So you want to set up a page for your Facebook business. What's really nice now in the whole new Facebook business page plan is that you can actually switch so that your primary mode of communicating on Facebook is as your business, not as your person. So somewhere on the side of your business page, there's a little toggle that says, like I have a page for crafting an MBA, and it says, use Facebook as crafting an MBA, and I can say yes. And then when I leave comments around the web, I'm suddenly not Megan Alman, I'm crafting an MBA. So you can do that with your business, and it's a really great way to sort of promote your business and keep your private life out of it. But a good Facebook page is really going to help you kind of build the rapport with your business. So this is one where you can see her wall comes up. But what you should always do in your Facebook page is create a landing page. That's the page that people coming to your page will look at. Instead of the wall, you can control the message. Usually it's a little bit about your business. The beauty is if you're on something like MailChimp, you can actually integrate an email sign-in form right into that landing page. So you can capture email addresses on your Facebook page too, which is beautiful. And then you have to make some kind of commitment to update your Facebook business page every now and again. And again, you can think about the same kind of content that you're using, whether it's your email marketing or your blog. You know, it doesn't have to be like really, really witty content, just kind of sharing what's going on in your business or sharing a link that you think your customers will find useful. But I think it's really critical to have and set up a Facebook page. The other thing that you should do is once you're over 25 fans on your Facebook page, you can claim a custom domain. So like I have facebook.com/craftmba and facebook.com/Megan Alman. So as soon as you hit that 25, go in there and claim that. And my kind of social media rule is, even if you don't think you're going to use it, I like to claim my turf. So even if you're not going to use Twitter, I would go get twitter.com/yourbusinessname. Because the worst thing that could happen is someone else takes it, and what if it's like a porn star? You know what I mean? What if you have a porn star tweeting and people are going looking for you and then they find the porn star? That's really bad. So you want to claim that first. So even if you're not going to use it, stake your claim, put a link to your website up there, make it your space before somebody else does. The other thing about Facebook is that now we're starting to see it really pervasively on every other website. So even if you're not ready to have a Facebook fan page, you're going to want to install Facebook like buttons on any website that you have control to do that on. Because now people can be on your website, click that they like something, that's going to show up in their newsfeed. All their friends are going to say, oh, she liked that, and then they're going to go check it out too. So it's really important anywhere that you can integrate these like buttons to do that, because that's going to help sort of spread the feelers out for your business. So if you're running a blog, anything on self-hosted WordPress, I use the Facebook like plugin, really simple, puts it down there at the bottom of my posts. I pulled it into my online shop. So anywhere that I can put a Facebook like button, I'm going to do that because I want people to, you know, while they're shopping, click that they like it. All right, so let's talk about Twitter. Twitter, you have to shift your mindset a little bit. So I don't really view Twitter as a vehicle for sales, though it can be. I like to view Twitter as a valuable networking tool. So it depends on your goals and your business. What's nice about Twitter is Twitter gives you instant access to kind of movers and shakers, whoever they are. So let's just say that one of your goals is to get more press for your business, whether it's bloggers or print press or whatever. I can go onto Twitter, I can find, you know, the Twitter names of all of the big bloggers, of all the big press that I want. And I can use this as an opportunity to network with them. And when I say network, it really is kind of like being at a giant cocktail party where you're talking about stuff that you're like, really? This is really what we're talking about today? But sometimes that happens. But if you think about it in real life, you're not going to go up to someone at a cocktail party and be like, hey, do you like my products? Like, buy it. Come on, buy it now. No, you're going to have those kind of maybe slightly ridiculous conversations from time to time. But you can use that as a really great way to build a rapport with, say, bloggers, or like now if I find a store that I'm interested in having them carry my product, I'm going to go ahead and, follow them on Twitter. Now, I'm not going to then tweet at them and say, please follow my product or please buy my product, but if they tweet something that I think my readers might find interesting, I'll retweet it or I'll respond back to something. So you're starting to build that relationship. And that's where Twitter becomes really important. The other thing that I will say about Twitter is if you have any designs on ever writing a book, whether that's like a book about your craft or anything, now publishing companies want to know, what's your platform? How many people are on your email list? How many people follow you on Twitter? So if you ever have kind of those lofty goals, set up Twitter, start to build that following, because now, they're not going to touch you without a Twitter account, and without a Twitter account that has a substantial following. So that's something just to keep in mind as you're thinking about sort of other branches for your business. And that's something I'll talk about in the next workshop. Just a little promo plug for that. But the biggest thing when it comes to social media is you have to avoid the constant sales pitch. If you're just going to be on Twitter and all you're going to do is tweet every time you relist an item on Etsy, you're going to have like 12 followers. And half of those might be your family. So it's really important that if you're going to be on it, you have to commit to sort of doing all the networky stuff. And if you don't want to do all that networky stuff, don't just sign up for Twitter and then tweet your products, because it's not worth your time. So I will say then, too, that you also have to balance. So I know plenty of people who are on Twitter all day long, and then they're probably not getting work done either. So you do have to find a little bit of balance. I like to just make sure I'm going on, I'm checking to see who's responding to me, who's kind of interacting with me, and then engaging with them that way. So that's kind of the general gist of social media. So let's talk about my new personal favorite, video marketing. I think that video marketing is the most underutilized marketing strategy for craftspeople. It could be the most valuable tool and people don't use it. So YouTube is the second largest search engine on the internet. The first is Google. Second is YouTube. And guess what? When you Google something, videos are going to come up usually in the top 5 searches. So if you're not putting out video, you're missing an opportunity for kind of like marketing. Also, when you think about stuff that goes viral, what goes viral on the web? It's video. It's not, like products or stuff. It's video that goes viral. And then I also think that, crafts are all about sort of the human interaction. It's not just about like, here's a pretty picture of a product. If you're selling at a show, you're putting your product into people's hands. You want them to feel, you want them to touch. Now, obviously, you can't quite do that with video, but video is going to come a lot closer than just some text and some images. So when you use video, you can really start to engage with your customer. So videos can also be used to give customers more information. And like I talked about with conversion, the #1 reason people don't buy is that they don't have enough information. So if you have a product that you can't articulate all the features or all the functions with just a couple of images, video is going to be really key. So this is Pocampo. They make these really fantastic bike bags in Chicago. And they have an entire series of videos all about how to use their different products, how they connect to the bike, what things you put in them. So if you have a product that's maybe a little difficult to understand, this can be really great. You can also give people like behind the scenes of your process. You can even make kind of fun little funky commercials. And then here's the thing, like you don't have to be super serious with a video. So this is this really classic video marketing campaign called Will It Blend? It's like kind of textbook marketing strategy. So this is their probably most popular video, 9,600,000 views. The week after the original iPhone came out, I mean when people couldn't even get their hands on them, this company took one and stuck it in a blender. because that's their whole thing. They sell blenders. They want you to know that their product is the most powerful blender you will ever find. So they take anything that's crazy and they put it in the blender. That's their whole shtick. Will it blend? And these are very viral videos. So this can be a really great marketing strategy. I think it's one that's underutilized. So much so that I will say that starting in May, I am actually going to be, and this is the first time I'm publicly announcing this, so I'm going to be issuing a 30-day video challenge to get more people to make video marketing. So head over to craftmba.com and I will soon have lots of information on that. All right, so we talked about a couple of different social media strategies. We talked about some other things. So let's actually talk about a few more traffic generating strategies, because I know you've all been listening to me and you're like, I just want to know how to get more people to come to my website, Megan. That's all I want. So we're going to talk about that for a few minutes. But again, I want to remind you that you should improve conversion first, then increase your traffic. Because here's the beauty of improving conversion first. If I could take conversion from 0.5% to 1%, I just doubled my sales without doubling my traffic. So conversion always first. The other thing is you don't want to spend all this time and energy getting traffic to your website and then have it just fall flat. But once you've got sort of all your ducks in the row for conversion, now we can start to think about a few other traffic generating strategies that I like. One is that you can go out and pitch bloggers. You can actually go out and pitch print press too, but the nice thing about bloggers is you usually see a quicker jump. You know, if a blog is going to cover you, they're going to cover you in, you know, a week or two of getting your email. So that's nice because you get that immediate traffic spike. So when it comes to pitching bloggers, I am a really big fan of Grace Bonney of Design Sponge. She has a strategy that she calls public relations for the independent designer. And it is about the simplest strategy that you could possibly use, but it is incredibly effective. So Grace says that you should have a digital press kit with 4 images. And those 4 images are an overall shot of your product, a really great detail, a shot of your product in action, and then a shot of what makes your product unique. So these are actual images that I used and then took this technique and was covered on Design Sponge, was covered on Tree Hugger, so I swear to you it works. 4 images. So this is, I think, the mistake that people make when they're trying to pitch the press, is you want to show people like everything in your line. Like you want them to see every possible thing. But again, it goes back to that confused mind always says no. So what this has you do is you focus on one product and you tell the complete story of that one product. And then you just send a simple email that introduces, you know, yourself and your business, just gives a little bit of information on the product, and then it gives them information on where to find more. And so then if they like other products, then they might cover those other products too. But it's really important that you kind of keep it simple for the email so that you don't bog them down. The other important thing when it comes to pitching bloggers or pitching the press is that you send out one personalized email, not like a generic email to every press person that you've ever heard of. So when it comes to building an email list, like I always tell people, build a list for the press, but that's not a list that you're going to build in MailChimp. That's a list that you're going to build old school. And by old school, I mean, you know, in like a Microsoft Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, so that when you want to pitch the press, you're sending one email individually to a person. You're going to use their name. You're going to use their correct name. If you follow any bloggers on Twitter, that's like you get to see all the kind of complaints about what not to do. You know, people calling them by their wrong name, dear sir or madam. You want to send that personalized email. But using that really simple strategy, those 4 great images, you can get some good coverage. Now that said, make sure that you're pitching appropriate products. So, you know, if they don't cover jewelry, don't pitch jewelry. Find a blog that covers jewelry. All right, so for some people, this strategy can seem a little bit overwhelming, or conversely, you might look at the fact that, you know, Grace from Design Sponge probably gets 1,000 product pitches a day. And sometimes your email just gets overlooked. So another strategy that I really like for getting traffic is actually going out and guest posting on other people's blogs. And what's nice about guest posting is, let's just say maybe you've got like a little bit of content that you want to share, but you know you can't make a full-on blog of your own. Guest posting can be a great way to actually get your name out there on blogs that have a lot higher traffic than your blog might. So this is just a blog, Scatty Girl, that she runs a lot of guest posts. But what I love about guest posting is instead of now emailing a blogger and kind of demanding something of them, here, cover my product, you're emailing a blogger and saying, I have something to offer you. Because when you're a blogger, it's really hard to generate content all the time. And sometimes you're like, oh, I got a guest post, that's great, I don't have to write this week. So when you offer someone a guest post, you're helping them out, provided it's a well-written guest post that fits the content of their site. But you're helping them out. So you're going to get the immediate traffic coming back from your guest post. When you write a guest post, always send a bio that you've written. Don't expect the blogger to write the bio for you. And that bio should have links back to your online home base. But so when you write a guest post, you have that kind of immediate like helpfulness, but then you also have that immediate boost of traffic to your site. People are going to come back to your site from that guest post. But then you also have the advantage of now you've done something useful for the blogger. Now you have a relationship with them. And the next time you send them a product pitch, they're actually going to be more inclined to open it because now you've got this relationship. They know that you're someone that's not just like this crazy person who emails them every day with product pitches. You're someone who writes good content, who's helping them out. So I think guest posting is a really, really great strategy for building content. And when you're seeking out guest post opportunities, I think we all get a little stuck on like the design blog world because that's where all the pretty pictures are and that's kind of where everything happens. But there's a whole big world of blogs out there that are probably being read by your target customer that aren't design blogs. There's that whole mommy blogger world. They need a lot of content. So that's a good one to look at. There's just all kinds of other blogs. So go out and look for where you think your target customer is going to be and start to guest post on some of those. All right, so then another strategy that you can use is this sort of like blog comment world tour, I like to call it. So you've probably heard this idea like, oh, if you want traffic, you should comment on people's blogs. But if you're not going to be one of the first 10 commenters, don't bother, because then you're not going to get any notice anyway. So you can see, I pulled this off of Design Sponge this morning. I think this was like 15 minutes after this post went up. She already had 46 comments. So if you're going to be the first person in there, that's great. But a better strategy is to pick a couple of those kind of high-profile blogs that your target audience reads. And now, instead of commenting on Grace's blog, I'm going to take that link at the bottom there. I'm going to go to her website, and I'm going to comment on her blog. So what happens is this is a blog that doesn't have the readership of Design Sponge. She was averaging maybe like 3 to 4 comments a post. So when you write a comment, we're not talking about a spammy sales comment. We're talking about you actually read a blog post and had something that you wanted to add. Even if it's just, hey, this is a great post, really enjoying your site. Just don't be like, please buy my product. That's not what we're talking about here. But so you go to her site. Well, now this person, she's probably gonna click back to your site because she doesn't get the volume of traffic that a Design Sponge gets. And so now you start to build that rapport that way. And so what you might do is you might set a goal for yourself. Every day I'm going to comment on 5 blogs. So maybe each day of the week you pick a different starter blog. So the first day you're going to go to Design Sponge and you're going to click back to 5 people's blogs and just leave really insightful comments or really positive comments, friendly, whatever you want to do. And then the next day maybe you're going to go to a mommy blog and then you're going to click out of that and you're going to leave comments on 5 people's blogs. By the end of the week you've left 25 comments. That's 25 really personal touch points with people who might become your customer. At the very least, maybe they don't become your customer, but they think your product's cool, they blog about it too. So it starts to kind of spread yourself out over the web. This is not a strategy that I would employ forever. It's not like 20 years from now you're still going to be, I have to get my 5 comments in today. But this is a good strategy when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of traffic. You can kind of use this to bring people back to your online home base. All right. And then the last traffic generation strategy that I want to talk about is advertising. And a lot of people think about advertising as like the first step of marketing. I like to think of it as the last step of marketing. I think there are other things that you can do with your brand and building your brand and your marketing strategy before you get to advertising. Advertising is a better way to reinforce the brand than it is to kind of bring in more traffic. So with that said, there are some kind of great and easy ways that you can advertise around the web now. So you can go to blogs, and a lot of them will have sponsor options where you can go, you can sign up. I love that Erin at Design for Mankind actually just has like a nice little PayPal pay button, and I can just pay and send her my ad, and it's right there. So you might want to start to think about what blogs do your target customer read, and maybe you want to run ads on those. A really good example of someone who does advertising right is Moop. If you've ever seen Moop, M-O-O-P, great bags, great product photography, all over the place. She does a lot of advertising, and that is probably not her primary traffic generation strategy, but every time you go to a website, you're like, oh yeah, Moop, I love Moop bags. So she's using that as a way to reinforce the brand. So it's brand awareness that then leads to permission, that then leads to sales. You can also run Facebook ads, and I know talking to people have mixed results with Facebook ads. Some people have a really great response, they run Facebook ads, they get a ton of fans for their Facebook page. But then the question is, what are you going to do with those fans? If you're not converting those fans, then it doesn't really mean anything. But if you're just starting out, what I like about Facebook ads, it's a nice way to test target demographics because you can run really targeted ads. I can say, I only want to run an ad for women in their 40s who live around Boston who like design. And it's only going to target those people. So it's a great way to kind of test and figure out if your target demographic is really who you think your target demographic is. And if not, you can kind of move on from there. The other one that we've all probably heard of is Google AdWords. So you've probably seen this traditional Google sponsored ads, sponsored search ads, all those kinds of things, which when you make a product that's primarily sold on its visual strengths, this one can be a little bit of a hard sell. If people don't actively search for your type of product, or if they're searching for your type of product, expecting that, and your product looks like this, Google AdWords might not work for you. But most people don't realize that Google Ads also let you do image ads. So you go into AdWords, it's really complicated, you click around, eventually you find something that lets you create an image ad. And those you can actually target the websites that you want to run on. So this is pulled off of Design Sponge, and Grace, when she doesn't have ad slots filled, will run Google Ads. So that can be a great way to kind of use visual ads and put them on a lot of different websites. All right, so in a few minutes I'm going to open it up for questions. But I just kind of want to reinforce. So when you're thinking about marketing, you're always going from that brand awareness to the permission to the sales. And you have to know that your marketing efforts are going to take some time. So you can't be like, oh, I started marketing yesterday, and be really disappointed that you haven't seen an increase in your sales tomorrow. So you have to think about that this is a process. And I know a lot of people will say, usually 6 months to a year. So you start to see all your marketing efforts pop. And if in 6 months to a year you're not seeing them pop, then you probably need new marketing efforts. But it's going to take a little bit of time to build. But always remember that what you're working on is that kind of idea of you're building brand awareness, and then you're getting permission to contact people. And that's what a lot of social media is too. It's just permission to interact with people again. So that's your email marketing, your Facebook, your Twitter. Brand awareness is things like your blog, your video, all those sorts of things. And then ideally, those will lead to sales. So that's where you can find me online. And now what we're going to do is open it up to questions. So if you're here in the personal space, or the actual real space, not the virtual world, if you could ask them into the microphone, please, only because we're recording this for our online audience, and they want to know what you're asking. So we'll take questions here. We'll take questions online, too. All right, who's first?
Anybody here have a question?
I know they've got plenty.
Yeah, if you want to ask a question, if you could just go up to the microphone, that would be great.
I'm not quite sure how to express this, but you alluded to putting in a year to 6 months before you can really expect to see results. And that's what I'm starting to be concerned about, is the life cycle of the business. And I'm seeing that in terms of maybe we're getting to overload. I just heard yesterday, this week, about one job position that was open. 532 people applied for it. And I'm wondering, you know, you could spend your whole life on the internet now.
You can, yeah.
Yeah, so there has to be some benchmarks where you kind of realize, go ahead or forget it.
Right.
And if you don't reach those benchmarks, then either you have to have another product or you need to go out into the real world. And that's what I'm finding in terms of people looking for jobs. You can't compete with 532 people. So you're back to old-fashioned networking.
Right.
And
So,
go
yeah,
ahead.
so I think that's a really good point. I know a lot of people, you know, will say, like, oh, my business isn't going quite the way I want. I need marketing, I need marketing, I need marketing. Well, maybe you need marketing. It's really important that you figure out, like you said, what your benchmarks are. So like what your baseline is, how much money your business has to bring in. I know no one ever really wants to talk about the accounting stuff because it's not as sexy as marketing, but it's actually really important if you want to run a successful business. So I always tell people, you know, like you need to know how much money your business has to make every month. And you need to know, you always hear that like, oh, it's going to take me a year till my business is profitable. And people will say, you know, it takes time. It takes time for your business to be profitable. Well, yes, that's true, but you have to make sure that things like your pricing are intact so that, you know, if you're pricing below your profit point, you can market forever and you're never going to actually make any money. So it's really important that with your marketing strategy that you've got all those numbers figured out so that in 6 months you can evaluate and say, you know, is money coming in from my marketing efforts? Yes, money's coming in and I'm still not making any money, in which case it's probably time to raise your prices. Or no, money's not coming in which case now I need to change my marketing strategy. Want to do some online questions?
Sure, okay, we're going to do an online question, and trying to get to where we started here. We have one here. With Twitter, is it important to connect to everyone or locate potential customers, and how?
I think it's really hard on Twitter to locate potential customers. That's why I would focus instead on Twitter on networking with kind of people of influence, so people that you think can reach your target customer. So you might not be able to just all of a sudden find your target customer just by randomly following people, but you might decide to, you know, connect with Jan from Poppy Talk, who is already tweeting to your ideal customer, and then kind of start to build a rapport with her, and hopefully she starts to maybe tweet out some of your stuff. So that's what I would focus on Twitter versus trying to find your particular customer, because that's a little harder to do there. Hopefully that answers the question.
Let's see. Cakewalk Yarns wants to know your thoughts on Tumblr, StumbleUpon, and all the others.
I think that they have their place. One of the things that I've heard people talk about with, so I'm going to take those two separately, StumbleUpon and Tumblr, because they're two very different things, I think, in a way. So StumbleUpon, what I've heard from people is that if something of yours ends up on StumbleUpon, you can get a huge influx of traffic on that particular occasion. But what a lot of people are finding is that it's not really valuable traffic. It's traffic that doesn't convert very well. It's kind of like a look and see audience. So it's nice if you want that traffic boost numbers, but if your real focus is not on traffic, which it shouldn't be, it should be on conversion, that tends to not be an audience that converts very well. So if you're installing social media buttons and you want to install the StumbleUpon button, you can certainly do that. But in my mind, I would rather focus on, say, like the Facebook button, so that people can kind of click one thing instead of thinking about a lot. Tumblr has that kind of like community atmosphere, and a lot of people are now using it as like a surrogate blog. Like I kind of think of Tumblr as the new blog spot, but with way more interconnectivity. But when I think about Tumblr, I think that you're building a brand for somebody else. Like when you're on Tumblr, you're not building your own brand, you're actually just helping Tumblr's SEO and Tumblr's brand name because you're something.tumblr.com. So what I like Tumblr for are things like a digital sketchbook, you know, a digital inspiration board, where you're kind of using it as a way to track your things around the web. But I wouldn't necessarily go out and use Tumblr as a primary marketing strategy. Yeah.
So my main target is for like Facebook and stuff because I've been using it for several years, and I'm a painter, and I was just wondering, like, is there any other way, maybe like visually or through like the voice, that I could get like my messages out besides just little like status updates?
So that actually goes back to the video piece that I was talking about. I was just having a conversation with someone who was telling me that Facebook is starting to sort of give preferential treatment to certain things in a news feed over others. And one of the things that is getting much more preferential treatment is video. So if I were you, I would probably use video as a way and kind of start to post videos to Facebook, include videos on there. I think that's probably the best way to sort of improve that, other than probably adding a lot of pictures, which I'm sure that you're already doing. So.
All right, thanks. Oh, and I was also wondering, do you know any websites that are about like verbally speaking through recorders instead of like writing?
I don't know of any websites. I know that there is a good app that you can get for like your iPhone and like your iPod Touch, which is called Dragon Dictation. And they might have a website service too, I'm not exactly sure. But I would at least look them up for starters.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. What should you do if you have an established blog, but it's on Blogspot, since you said it's not good for SEO?
It's not ideal for SEO. So if I were running a Blogspot blog, and actually not if, because this is what I did with mine, you could actually set up a self-hosted WordPress site, self-hosted WordPress blog. And what that means is you have a domain name and you install WordPress at your domain name. You can actually transfer all of your Blogspot posts to your new WordPress blog or your new self-hosted blog with like 2 clicks of a button. And then there's a fancy little plugin that actually redirects all your Blogspot, like your old links, it redirects them to your new blog. So that's what I would do. And then you can still start to pull all your SEO. It's going to be like a little bit of a transition. You'll have to, you know, ask people to change their RSS feeds. So you might see a little drop off in traffic during that transition, but in the long run, it's worth it to make the switch. And it'll take that plugin where you can move your blog, it'll take all your images, it'll take everything for you. Yeah, it's super easy.
All right, we can do another one from the web users. Let's see. When advertising on Facebook on a budget, is there a dollar minimum?
I'm not sure what, I think it's just like Google AdWords in that you set your campaign and you can set how much you want to spend. I don't know if there's a minimum, but I know that you can set, like if you only want to spend $1 a day, you can kind of set it to be whatever you want it to be.
Someone wants to know, what does SEO stand for?
So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And it's the really fancy way of saying, how do I get my website to show up higher when someone searches for it on Google? And there's a whole group of web marketing gurus out there who just focus on SEO. I mean, to the point where you see like websites that are just jam-packed with keywords so that their website ranks first. And that's not really what you want to do. But you do want to try to make sure that like if you have a website and someone searches, so like my website is meganalmond.com, if someone searches Megan Almond, I want to be sure that that's the first thing that comes up. So you want to make sure that you are definitely, you know, search engine optimized for your particular brand. If that makes sense.
Okay, we have some more online. First of all, where would you recommend registering a domain name?
So I will start off with where I don't recommend registering a domain name, which is GoDaddy. And I know that that's the next question. Everyone's be like, oh, why not GoDaddy? So what I know about them, and there's probably going to be like GoDaddy Nazis descending on me later or something, but what I know about them is that they nickel and dime you. So they get you in with this really, really cheap rate, but then you have to pay for stuff that other people use, you know, that other people like have for free. And then from what I've heard, they don't have very good customer service. So there are plenty of other good ones out there that you can use as long as you're staying away from GoDaddy. Two that I like are Bluehost and HostGator. HostGator as in like alligator, but HostGator. Yeah, Bluehost, so it's just bluehost.com. That's who I host all my stuff on. They have really killer customer service. I've had a couple times where my site's gone down and you just call them up and they figure out what's going on. And then HostGator, gator as an alligator, HostGator.com. Both of those are really good, and I would recommend either one of them.
Anyone here? No? Okay, we'll go back to our web audience. So a couple of people have asked this in different ways, so yeah. I'll try to kind of paraphrase, but people want to know how many items should they have in their Etsy store, and if it's just one item that they do really well, is it okay to just have that?
So if you have just one item that you do really well, I think that's fine. I would still list it multiple times. Like I would make it multiple listings and not do one listing with like 12 items. Because when people log on to your store, they're going to want to see like a nice front page. So, you know, what is that? I think 12 to 15 images, depending on how wide your browser is. So I would at least have that in there. As far as the maximum number, it really depends on your product. So if you make kind of a small core group of things, you don't need that much. And I'm a fan of not overwhelming customers, because it goes back to that confused mind always says no. But there are some people where their product, people kind of enjoy the hunt. And a good example is Juliet Ames, who runs the Broken Plate Pendant Company. Juliet, because every single one of her pieces is a little bit different, people want to like hunt through to find the one that speaks to them, and she finds this is true in retail craft shows too. So she might have like 500 things listed in her Etsy shop, and that works for her product. For most people, I would say, whoa, that's way too many. But that works for her. So it's all going to depend on your product. And I think that you know, what you want to focus on is making it easy for people to navigate through your shop. So it's fine if you're going to have a lot of product, but make sure that you've got really clear, logical, you know, product breakdowns. And think about what logical means not to you, but to your customer. So if you make, you know, say jewelry, are they going to want to search only necklaces, or are they going to want to search by collection? Think about what the most likely way that people are going to want to browse, and then group your products that way.
And someone actually online said that Groupon just had a webinar on SEO. So if anyone here is actually interested in that, if you go to grouponworks.com, they just recently had a webinar on SEO.
Good to know.
So that's some helpful information that they shared. We have another question about web blog etiquette.
Okay.
And I guess in general, are there certain rules to follow, and is it okay to, when commenting on a blog post, is it okay to include your business name or website?
So what I would say when you're commenting on a blog post is there's always fields to fill in, where the fields are like your name, your website, your email, and then the actual comment box. So I would put, if you want to put your business name instead of your personal name, that's fine. Fill in the web URL link. You're going to have to put your email in the comment. But I would not repeat that information in the body of your comment because it's already there and it's already going to show up. So when you start to repeat that, that's when it starts to feel a little spammy. But as long as you're putting it in there, I think that's fine. As far as kind of like etiquette, when you're commenting, I think the biggest etiquette is don't spam people. So if you're going on there and you're only talking about yourself or your product, that's spam. If you're going on there and you're kind of talking about what's going on in the blog, that's okay. And then I would say, also don't try to like change the entire direction of a conversation. So if there's a comment thread and it's going one way, and then you jump in with something completely out of the blue, people are gonna be like, who is this crazy girl and what is she saying to me? So kind of stay within the theme of the thread too, and that's just, to make you not look crazy.
Does brand awareness mean labeling your products too?
I don't necessarily know that it means labeling, but I think it just means, if people hear the name of your brand, they're going to put a face to the name. And by face, they don't necessarily mean your face, but I mean your product face. So, I always tell people that I think that the best way to represent your brand is with your products and not your logo. Because it takes a lot of time and a lot of money to recognize a logo. So, like if you think about the world, there are maybe 20 logos that we recognize. It might be a little more than that. But there are not a lot of logos that we recognize instantly. You got McDonald's, you got Nike, you got Starbucks, you got Target. There's a big handful. Your kind of random logo is not going to communicate anything to people about your business. And that's why I like, Moop as an example of kind of building brand awareness, because all of her ads, all of her imagery, it's the product. The product is the forefront. So now when you think about a Moop bag, you can picture it right away. So I always tell people, you want to avoid using like your logo and focus on the product itself. Not totally avoid your logo, but product should be the highlight.
Which application would you recommend using on your own website? WordPress?
Yes, I would totally advocate self-hosted WordPress. It's super, super easy. Don't let your web designer talk you into Joomla. It's miserable. I did a workshop last weekend and people said, oh, we're on Joomla. And I was like, oh, get off now. There's this whole genre of people who use Joomla, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. I just think that WordPress is way more intuitive, way more user-friendly, and just really, really great.
How can one best advertise their Facebook fan page?
So first off, start with your actual Facebook network. So as soon as you build your fan page, everybody that you know on Facebook, send out that little blast. It's your family and your friends, and they send you way stupider stuff than your business page. I mean, they send you like happy hour drink requests, come on. So you can send your business page and it's fine. So that's the first thing I would do. And then the second thing I would do is I would put it on any other platforms that you are online. So somewhere prominently displayed on your website should be the link that takes people back to your Facebook page. If you have a blog, you're going to want to blog about it. Basically, any place that you can put it, you're going to want to put it. But if you're really trying to get more people than to like the page, then you might want to play with some of those targeted Facebook ads, because that's going to maybe bring in more traffic. Like if your blog readers are low and your website traffic is low, you're not going to get it out to many other people. So that's when you might start looking into the advertising.
Let's see. What's your opinion of LinkedIn?
I am of kind of a no opinion on LinkedIn. I'm on it. I think LinkedIn is really good if you do a lot of B2B, so a lot of business to business, like you are a copywriter or you are a graphic designer or you are something where other businesses are going to hire you. I think LinkedIn is really great for that. And I also think LinkedIn is really great if you are someone who's out there looking for a job. And then you can use it as networking. In my mind, I don't think that it's critical that you're on every social media platform, and I think that's what bogs people down in their marketing efforts. You think, like, oh, this is the hot new social media platform that everybody is talking about. Well, yeah, but is it really right for you and your customer? So you have to think about, is your customer on there? And if your customer is not there, it's probably not worth it. I mean, how many different ways do you need to network with your colleagues? So like I network with my colleagues on Twitter. So I don't need to go network with my colleagues on LinkedIn because I'm already networking with them in a space that I prefer. But if you're not networking with your colleagues anywhere else, then maybe you do want to go, to LinkedIn. But if you're networking with your colleagues on the Etsy forums, then you might not need LinkedIn. So I think it's just a matter of, like you don't need 20 spaces that all do the same job. So you pick the one that does the job best, and then the rest of them you can let fall away.
When do you know when to trademark your name? Do you do it immediately, or do you wait to see how the business goes?
I think it depends on how unique your name is and if your name is even trademarkable. So a lot of people, I run my business as Megan Alman. That's a really obvious name. It's my name. So until my business is established, I probably can't secure a trademark for that because trademark law favors unique and nonsensical names. So like Apple as a thing for computers, or something like that, where it doesn't actually make any sense. I'm trying to think of a really good nonsensical one, and now they've all escaped me. But that's what they favor. So if you have a really nonsensical name and you're really attached to it, then you might want to trademark it. But I think in the long run, trademarking is actually less critical than going out and grabbing your name in all those online spheres. So there's no sense in running a trademark if you haven't grabbed the domain name, if you haven't grabbed the Facebook page, if you haven't grabbed the Twitter stream. You want to grab all of those things, the YouTube channel. You want to grab all of those things first. And once you've grabbed those, then you can figure out if trademark is really important to you. But I think it's more important to claim your space online than it is to worry about trademarking your name.
Anybody here? Should one tweet in order to help promote an Etsy shop?
So only if you're going to tweet about other stuff too. If you're going to just tweet about your Etsy shop, then you're probably going to be tweeting to no one. So I would say no. But I'll give you an example from my own personal world. I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/Megan Alman. You can all follow me. I love Twitter, and I kind of just chit chat with various people. Every so often, I'll tweet about my products. So maybe 2 winters ago, the East Coast got hit by this really awful snowstorm the weekend before Christmas, the last shopping weekend before Christmas. And so I was on Twitter. Oh yeah, I'm still shipping till Monday. Can't get out to get your Christmas presents. My shop is still open. I can get it to you for Christmas. And I actually made, a couple of sales off of that. But I don't do that every day. I spend most of my time networking, building a rapport with people, and then occasionally I'll let people know, hey, I have a new product, or hey, this is something new in my shop, or yes, I am still shipping for Christmas. But if you're going on there and your entire Twitter feed is just product, new product, new product, new product, you're wasting your time.
I think so.
Yeah, how about?
So going back to what you said about claiming your name online. Mm-hmm. So what happens then if someone else on Facebook or Twitter or MySpace has your name already?
So are you using your own name or a business name?
My own name.
Okay. So your own name, then you might have to get creative. Your name design or your name art. You might have to tack something behind it. And so what I would say to you also is if your name is pretty common or your name is already being used by someone who has a level of fame already, then you might want to think about branding your business under a slightly different name. Maybe it's your first and your middle name combined, or your middle name and your last name, or maybe it's some other thing that you make up. So I would think about it that way too.
But your first, middle, and last name would be right, or is that too long?
As long as they're short, I think you can get away with it. I know some people who do it and it works pretty well. So, yeah.
Okay. With Twitter, is it important to connect to everyone or locate potential customers? Did I already ask that one?
I think you already asked that one.
Okay. When do you know when to trademark your name?
We just did that one.
Did
too.
that one? Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to do 2 things at once.
That's okay.
I think we've covered everything online. If there's anyone else online who has any more questions, if they want to add those or type them in the chat box.
expected a lot more questions.
We have one more here if you want to step up.
This might be for the MICA people. I just wonder what characteristics you've seen in terms of MICA people who have been commercially successful as an independent as opposed to working for some other organization. Because I assume you've seen people over the years leave MICA and try to do something commercially. And I just wonder what you've noticed.
It's a real mixed bag. Yeah, and I think it's a question that, might be best answered by looking at our website and looking at our alumni site and kind of seeing, or even contacting our alumni office just to find out. I don't know that I could really.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think there could be any one way or any one, sort of path that anyone could take. It's a very mixed bag of artists and sort of what they're doing with their art. And their approach has been very mixed. So some people have done television shows, some people have done very well in sculptures, some people have done very well on Etsy, some people have done very well in the painting world, but they're very different approaches.
Yeah, and recently, I don't know if you get our Juxtapositions publication, but that has a lot about what alumni are doing. And recently there was a piece about a MICA alum who is now doing makeup for Oprah. So, it's just, it spans like a wide area, but I would recommend going to our website, looking under the alumni links, and also contacting the alumni office if you wanted to just get more information about that. I personally don't know.
I would add too, this isn't about MICA specifically, but I just think in terms of, creative people who go on to build successful businesses, I think it's important to understand that just because you're creative, and people are going to be like, I can't believe I'm about to say this, just because you're creative doesn't mean that you have to be an entrepreneur. I personally love being an entrepreneur, but if you don't love it, you're not going to be successful. And so I have plenty of students who, have studied jewelry design, they got out, they maybe tried to run a business, and they were like, you know what? I don't actually want to do this. I want a job, and that's okay too. So they went out, they got a job working for a production jewelry studio. It's a really fantastic place to work. They have benefits and actual fixed hours. I don't have fixed hours. I work all the time. And that's part of the life that I chose. So I think that, when it comes to those traits, there are certain entrepreneurial traits. And if you're going to go out and build a business, you have to recognize either A, that you have those traits, or B, that you have to develop them. And that sometimes happens too. I know plenty of people who, if you look at the traditional entrepreneurial traits, they might not have them. They might be kind of like a wallflower, or they might not have always been the take charge leader, but for whatever reason, maybe it was circumstance, or maybe it was just pure determination, they built those traits in themselves. They're not the wallflower anymore. They're kind of out there doing their thing. So, I think the biggest thing is kind of like determination, because sometimes it just takes a long time. You always want, we always hear about the stories of like overnight and instant success, but what you don't see is all the time that leads up to those things. Sometimes people will go, artists will work for 10, 20, 50 years, and then when they break, people are like, oh, well, they were an overnight success. Well, no, they were an overnight success to you, but to them, they've been working for a lot of years. So I think that, really, if you look at it, determination might be the biggest sort of defining factor.
Another question here. Do you have any suggestions for someone who might not be like a craft or an artist, but they're, they want to advertise a bakery through Facebook or a blog?
Yeah, so I think a lot of those same things apply. So if I had a bakery, first of all, I would use a lot of probably Facebook ads, because I can target by demographic, and obviously your bakery is going to be focused on one geographic location. I would also use tools like on Twitter, you can search for like location-based tweets based on zip code. So I might search and find out like who are maybe the newspaper people tweeting in my area, or who are the kind of other movers and shakers tweeting in my area. And And I would still make video because I would love to see videos of yummy cupcakes. I mean, that would just make me want to go right into the bakery. So I think you can use a lot of those same things, but I would still focus on that idea of, you know, product over logo when you're running your ads. So you might have this really great logo for the bakery, but people might not know what it means. So, but if you have this really delicious looking picture of a cupcake, that's a great ad, because then suddenly people are like, oh yeah, I want a cupcake, like that's great. And then maybe they don't click on the ad right away, but then the next time they're driving by your business, they're like, oh yeah, I want a cupcake. So I think, again, focusing on the product, not the logo, is the way to go. Really, really great pictures. Now everyone wants a cupcake.
And how quickly should you expect to see results from your marketing? And I guess the second half to this question is, what can I do to get my product to the top of the list?
So I guess my question would be, what list? Okay, because it depends on what list you're going for. So it all depends on your marketing. So some of the stuff, it's really going to start to be, like I said, like that 6 months to a year. Some stuff you might see instantaneous. So you know, you might email a blogger and you might get some traffic right away. But then you want to always go back and evaluate. So anytime that you're getting that influx of traffic, you always want to check your conversion rates. So did I actually convert the number of people that I was hoping to convert? So when it comes to your marketing, everyone kind of wants those like really big gains, but what you have to actually look at is it's really about the incremental changes. So what can I do to boost my conversion from 0.5%? It might not even be to 1%, it might be to 0.75%. And kind of make those small, and then once you're at 0.75, great, what can I do to boost my conversion to 1%? And then get it to 1.5. So it's about those little changes. And then the same thing, so like if you're talking about what can I do to get myself to the top of, say, the Google search list, you might not go from 4 pages down to the first page. Instead, you might have to be like, okay, my goal is just to see if I can move up a couple spots and then move up a couple more spots. So it's always really about those incremental changes. And if you're not seeing those incremental improvements, then it's really time to reevaluate. And then what you'll see over time is that hopefully from, you know, first month to like the 6th month, you see a huge jump. But when you're in it, it doesn't look like that. It's just those little incremental changes that kind of build on each other. Hopefully that answers that question. Oh yeah, go ahead.
All right, so like that nice necklace you're wearing, and like this video that we're making right now, or this this show or whatever, I was just like noticing that it's much more interesting in person. And don't you think that maybe all of this work and effort online like doesn't mean as much as it does in person?
I think that's a really great question. And I have to say that I think it's really important to build your business offline as well as online. I am a huge fan of multiple streams of income. I think that you should never put all your eggs in one basket. So if you're like, okay, I'm gonna have an Etsy shop and that's it, you're gonna have a really hard time growing your business. So I love to do, like I do a lot of online webinars. I love to do this where I actually get to talk to real people. I like real people, it's nice. All day long I work in my studio by myself. So that's why, you know, I do things, like I always tell people, if you've never done retail shows, do some retail shows because it gets you out, it actually gets you interacting, it gets you talking with people. You know, I do a lot of my business is wholesale, and I do wholesale trade shows because I like to go in person and talk to my customers, and that's really important to me. So I agree, I think web marketing is critical, but I think so is in-person marketing, and I would definitely make that a part, whether it's, you know, if you're a painter, it's doing live gallery events. You can always find speaking opportunities for your business. I mean, I do a lot of business education, so a lot of my speaking has to do with business. But there are always, you know, small groups of people, Kiwanis, all those groups, who are looking for people to entertain them. And you, as an artist, a maker, a designer, a craftsperson, you have some kind of skill or knowledge that they don't know anything about. So you can go, you know, to the luncheon of, you know, whoever the ladies at lunch and talk about what it is you do or what it is you make or what it is you find interesting. So yeah, I think in-person stuff is really important. And that I would also add too, is another reason to have that online home base. So when I talk to a group of people, I don't put up 12 websites up here. I'm not like, go to this site, this site, this site, that. Now I want to direct them back online, you know, you send them to the online home base. But yeah, I agree. In person, really critical.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
I just want to add to that for the people online and here. Our second workshop, Finding Your Market, Megan talked at length about finding your market and also a lot of face-to-face interactions and all the craft shows and things like that that you did, and how to kind of look at your audience and analyze who's coming up to look at your work and things like that. So that workshop was also recorded and is posted online at mica.edu/SPCS. So you can actually watch that whole, it was just like this, and Megan gave a great presentation about finding your market and discuss that at length. So for the people online and people here, that's a resource you can use. Let's see. Someone kept reposting this question, so I want to ask it. If it's something, and I think we kind of talked about this with something that's edible, but also if it's something scented, you know, how do you get that across to your audience? You know, since they can't smell it and they don't know if it's going to be any good. That was a question that we had.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, scented stuff, that is a tricky one online, which is another good reason why in person helps a lot. But I think you want to kind of describe stuff to people in a way that's really enticing. So you don't just want to be like, it smells like strawberries. You know, think about when people have a lot of emotional connections, they have a lot of emotional connections to smell. And people have a lot of memory connections to smell. So people aren't going to buy your product because they like that it smells like strawberries. They're going to buy your product because the smell of strawberries brings up something for them. So what stories can you tell? Maybe it's about picking strawberries in the field as a child, or the scented lotion that your mother wore. So starting to think about how you can make those memory connections with people. And then now they're anticipating that smell before they get it. So instead of not just being like, oh, I want this thing because it smells like strawberries, you're like, I want this thing because it smells like my childhood. And so that's what you want to play on. So that's going to be really key in your product descriptions, that you're really kind of describing in a way that evokes those things. Also, even in your photography, so thinking about how can you make your photography look the quality of the smell, if that makes sense. And so if the smells are really like soft, you know, you've got lavender or something, then maybe it's a real soft photography versus maybe a stronger smell. You might have something a little more crisp. So you're really trying to kind of paint the mood. And I would start to look at, I know this is going to sound a little cheesy, but how do big corporations market that? So obviously, Glade advertises on TV all the time. And I'm not saying they're a good example, but I would look at them and ask yourself, well, they're selling a smell. That's their entire product, is a smell, and they're selling it to you over the TV. So what visual cues are they using? What kind of emotions are they evoking? And sort of go from there. But I think the tie-in between smell, emotion, and memory is really key for making that sales point.
All right, if we don't have any more questions online or here, I think we're going to wrap for tonight. If anybody, anyone can visit Megan, they can get in touch with you through craftmba.com. They can post there, or marketingformakers.com. And you can also email MICA at or the School for Professional Continuing Studies at spcs@mica.edu, or visit us on our website at www.mica.edu/spcs. We want to thank everybody who attended online, everybody who came here. We have one more workshop in 2 weeks. And that's also presented by Megan, right?
Yep, I'll be back. One more.
And what's the last topic?
It is on growing your business.
Growing your business.
So
Very
we're going to
good.
talk about like building multiple streams of revenue, kind of projecting growth into the future, all kinds of stuff that will help you hopefully take your business from small to whatever size you want it to be.
Okay, so that'll be in 2 weeks, same time, same